All right. Thanks for coming on, man. I do appreciate it. I wanted to bring you on for many reasons. We've been friends for many years and we go way back to college. I wanted to bring you on to get your perspective as a shorter man and dating in the US.
All right. Yeah. And, thanks for having me on the channel. Pretty happy to see that it's gaining popularity, and I'm excited to see where this conversation goes.
So what have been the biggest challenges or struggles dating as a shorter guy in the US?
So for me, at least, the biggest challenges dating in the US definitely starts with like what environment you're in. So if you're in a bar environment, that can get challenging because I think height is such a initial thing people see in the bar. So like just take a dance floor environment, you're not really standing out in the crowd unless you're above average height initially. And now there's ways around that. You can have like good dance moves or, confidence when you walk up to a woman that you're interested in when you're single. But I would say for sure, just being recognized when you're pretty much the average height or smaller can get in the way of your dating life initially.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, especially bars and nightclubs, I definitely can attest as like a taller man. It's definitely a lot easier to get noticed. And, I think women are wearing, when they're wearing high heels, 2 to 4 to 5 inches, it definitely helps you kind of stand out in a crowd. I guess in terms of like dating in college, what was your experience? Like, what was your biggest challenge back then during those years?
Well, to be honest, I had a great time in college, just getting to be out there, meeting different women, and like learning about myself in the process. I actually had a great time in college. I was surprised that women would even have sex with me at that point. So I was like, wow, like this is a change of pace from high school. So yeah, I mean, in college, it was really just kind of learning the basics because I don't know. I mean, I didn't start out knowing that stuff, so I kind of had to just learn as I go, and I had a fun time doing it. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was to say, yeah, I can attest that you did really well in college. I remember going out to like a local city with you and going to a bar, and I remember I saw you make out with like a pretty attractive girl. I would say she was about a 7 or so, and then I also saw you get chased around a room by a crazy chick. I don't know if you want to go into that story, but
yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that really like it was yesterday.
Yeah. So for me, once again, it can vary, but for me, being a shorter guy definitely has some high highs in the dating realm and some low lows. This crazy chick that you're referencing was something of both. So we went out to this bar, Chad and I. And we're just hanging out, having a good time. And this seemingly nice woman sits down next to me. And it started out really just like whatever. She was talking about what was on the menu. And me not being at this bar very often, I just kind of was being, cordial with her and just saying, yeah, pizza's good or whatever you want. Like, I didn't know what to say to her. And then, Chad, he had to go excuse himself. He had to use the restroom or something.
Went downstairs to the basement.
Yeah. So now I'm like one-on-one with this person. And in this conversation I was having with her, it dawned on me that she wasn't drunk. Like everyone else in the bar, I assume, was drinking. I think she was on something much stronger, probably heroin or something. I don't know what she was on.
She definitely seemed like she was on heroin.
Yeah.
She was staring. She was like, you were like trying to watch the like the football or basketball game, and she was just staring like right over at you. Like it was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, so we went to this bar to watch the playoffs in the NBA. I'm just watching the game, and this woman is staring right into my eyes while I'm staring in a different direction at a television, just trying to enjoy the game. So. There was a lot of red flags, but me just being a guy thinking like, it's whatever, I'll be fine. Not going to freak out about it. And then, after you got back from the bathroom, I kind of like, I think I texted you or I whispered to you, I was like, we should probably move upstairs. 'Cause we were on the first floor at that time just to get away from her, not thinking she would, really bother me after that. So we go upstairs to watch the rest of the playoff game in that section of the bar. I noticed that the woman that was downstairs was coming upstairs when I was heading towards the upstairs bathroom at that time. So she tried to follow me into the bathroom. It was like a one-person bathroom, and I was able to lock it since it was one person. but like the door had like frosted glass, so I could see her silhouette in the window, and like I could see her waiting right outside the bathroom for me. And I'm like, all right, I gotta take care of my bathroom, business. This is why I came in here. So I took a piss, whatever, washed my hands, and I opened the door, knowing she was hiding in the corner of the door, and she tried to grab me by the arm, almost like it was a haunted house or something. And I had to like push her off of me. And mind you, I didn't like hurt her or nothing, but I had to get her, like she was basically assaulting me at that point. And I tried to like speed walk towards you, like I made a beeline towards Chad. And everyone at the bar is like watching this, just laughing, thinking like this woman chasing me is a joke or something. Like we're playing tag in a bar. But I was actually legitimately scared for my life because I think she either wanted to have sex with me in the bathroom, kill me, or both.
I think it was a combination of both.
I think she wanted to do both. I think she had just gotten out of prison or some other institute. So
she was in a mental hospital or something.
Yeah. I don't know where she came from, but so she's chasing me around the bar, and finally she gets fed up and she yells, "All right, run away, little man!" And then just everyone's cracking up at this, and she just disappears. She goes downstairs, and I'm afraid to go back downstairs, but eventually I get the courage to go down there. She's gone. I have never seen her since, and that was probably over 6 years ago. So
that was so crazy because I remember like I was sitting at a table and I was looking over, and like there was the crazy lady standing outside the bathroom. I'm like, is he in the bathroom? I'm like, I think he's in the bathroom. Yeah. And she was just waiting outside. And then when you opened the door, she tried to like lunge and grab your wrist.
Yeah.
And you pulled away, and then she just came after you. Yeah. And like, luckily you got around to the table. I think she was probably like 4'10", 4'11".
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, she wasn't that tall.
Yeah, she was pretty. She was on the shorter side, and like, yeah, I remember that you were trying to get her on the table. She was trying to get to you, and then she just kind of gave up, and that's when she yelled that. But that was absolutely crazy, man. But yeah, I can attest that. Yeah, you guys as a shorter guy, like you've had I've seen a lot of interesting things happen to you. Like I remember the time when we were in Vegas, and there was a group of 6 of us. And there was a Hispanic chick that pointed you out, and she's like, "Hey, short guy."
Yeah.
And then we were in New Orleans many years ago, and we were all sitting at the table, and that like Middle Eastern chick was like really into you. It was like it's kind of crazy, like But you mentioned high school, high school in terms of how was dating in high school for you as a shorter guy?
Oh, fucking brutal! I got nothing back then, dude. But I feel like a lot of guys acted like they were pulling when they really weren't pulling. And then there was people that they were doing their thing even back in high school. But I think they were more of the outlier than like the actual trend. I think a lot of guys, even guys that had game after high school, weren't really pulling that much back in high school. I think a lot of guys just have like maybe one or maybe 2 relationships in high school. And that's really all the action most high school people are getting. I mean, there's the exception, but that if you're getting into one serious relationship in high school, you did pretty well for yourself. So
yeah, I can attest to that too. Like, I was only really in one serious relationship in high school, and besides that, like, I went out with a few girls, but I didn't really have that much success in high school. It wasn't until much later on that I started seeing success. So yeah, high school can be brutal for a lot of people.
And just to add on top of that, I think at least back when I was in high school and you were in high school as well, like certain things like dating apps weren't even used back then. Like I don't know if Tinder was out there at that point. It probably was, but like high school kids wouldn't even think of using something like that.
It's very true.
So really, your total number of people is so small because you're just dating within your high school, really. Like
right within your grade or within like those 2 grades.
Yeah, you don't have like the whole internet to choose from.
Yeah, that's a good thing you point out because like I was in high school and there was no such thing as dating apps. There was no online dating. And I'll say that I think it was much harder back then than it is now. Kind of bring up dating apps when I know you've been in a long-term relationship for many years now, but when you were using, Tinder and Bumble and these dating apps, what was your overall experience? What was like the biggest struggle, and what were some things you saw success with?
When I first started using dating apps, I thought they were a joke. And then I realized when I saw you having like millions of success stories, I guess you could say, I was like, okay, this is something to get on. So initially, I would say the biggest struggle using a dating app is having good pictures, like,
Mm-hmm.
and not just having pictures that you think are good, but like what women want to see. Because I feel like guys and women have different ideas of what a good Tinder profile or dating profile looks like.
100%.
I think a guy, if we lived in a world where guys made all the decisions in dating, we'd have like pictures of like bench pressing or doing like bicep curls, maybe going fishing, like things that women just don't really want to see on your profile.
Fish selfie or
Oh yeah, they
mirror
hate the
selfie.
fish selfie. Apparently, that's like a cringe thing if you have a fish.
1 out of 1,000 girls would love the fish selfie, but
Yeah,
it's not going to
yeah.
be too much of a hit.
Yeah, for anyone out there with a fish profile picture, definitely change that as your first picture. That's not going to work. So
Yeah, I'll definitely say like on dating apps, you know, it's looks focused because
Yeah.
they're just going off of your photos, and obviously some girls are going to read your bio, but I think having good quality professional pictures can help.
oh yeah,
And you know what I found to give me a little more success is to kind of have some activity pictures, whether you're hiking or
those are good.
whether
yeah.
you're playing a sport, or sometimes like a suit picture can really help. But just have 3 or 4 like high quality pictures, because obviously your height, you know, your bone structure, your facial features, your body, your hair, those types of things really are going to be the first thing. But the second thing is like the presentation. And that's where I think I remember seeing your profile picture on Bumble, I believe it was, and you had like a suit photo, you had like a photo with a dog, and like you crafted a good bio and overall good pictures to like give you success. In terms of like, you know, going on the dates, did you have any, I guess to kind of bring it back to you know, like dating apps and dating in general, have you had any like brutal rejections that you've had to experience as a shorter guy?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple ones that come to mind. There was one time where I met a woman, and I guess I wasn't highlighting my height. Like, I guess you got to highlight your strengths on dating apps.
Mm-hmm.
If you're short, maybe not start. I mean, eventually you have to be honest and you have to be transparent and all of that. But it's not the first thing I talk about, right? So this is before I realized how to be more vulnerable on dating apps. I would go on dates with women and just kind of like wing it and be like, whatever happens, happens. And one time I got on I had a date with someone, and she was definitely like 5'8", 5'9", me being 5'5". Not really what I go for. I have dated taller women in my past, but it's not like my go-to. It's not my thing, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went in for the hug, I was just already just like, this is gonna go bad. And like, I guess it was a rejection on my part. I wasn't really into her, and she didn't. I guess she didn't feel one way or the other about my height, but it just didn't really work out there
Mm-hmm.
from my perspective. But then there's been rejections against me where women are more subtle, I would say, where
Mm-hmm.
they'll say, let's meet here at this time, and then when it's time to meet up, they're not responding to your text. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of ghosting you in a very subtle way, or
Yep.
sorry, I was
Had that happen
with
before.
my friends. I didn't see your even though they planned the thing in advance. They're
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, when it comes game time, they're not there. These are things I think as guys you got to read into a little closer, because you may just write it off as, well, maybe next time we can hang out, but that is really like the one and done situation where you have to accept you've been rejected.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. I think like ghosting's going to happen to everybody, like regardless if you're short, you know, you're taller. It happens to everyone. Yeah, that's that. I'm glad you're able to overcome it essentially. I guess going back to like bars and clubs, like those are the places where I think a lot guys experience like the most amount of rejections. I've experienced it when I was overweight, as well as, you know, still up to this day occasionally. Do you remember any particular stories of you were in a bar and
Oh yeah.
you walked up to a girl, and can you remember any like rejection in particular?
Yeah, I mean, the one that really stands out in my mind was the same night where that crazy woman basically attacked me. But that same night, we went to another bar, like just after that interaction with the woman that, you know, maybe just got out of jail or something that was chasing me down. for apparently no reason, by the way. But we go to another bar, you and I, and we go to the dance floor, and I noticed some girl that was really attractive after we had been there for a couple hours, and I went up to her, I said something funny, and she knew that like whatever I was saying, it didn't matter because she was just out of my league. I would say she was a solid 8, maybe higher. But at that point, I was like, whatever. I almost died tonight, so what do I have to lose? And that's a good feeling you should have. Is like, what do you have to lose? Because even though she just like laughed at me and didn't even like entertain my question or whatever, like that brutal rejection is as bad as it gets, because you can just move on and go to the next person in the bar or go to another bar if you feel that embarrassed. But you can literally just restart the night somewhere. You don't have to carry that negative feeling to your next location. So, but anyways, yeah, she was very attractive. Yeah, she just looked at me and just laughed. Like she was just like, "You gotta be kidding me." She might have been like 5'8". I have noticed that like the very attractive women, like when we're talking about like 8 and above, they have a certain height structure to them. Like supermodels are usually, I think, around 5'9", 5'10". So I saw this woman that was in that. I wouldn't say she was a supermodel, but very attractive.
Pretty attractive.
And you know, I shot my shot, and she just brutally rejected. You know, she just like just spiked my like head into the ground. You know, emotionally, I guess you could say. Like it was brutal. Yeah.
That's. I remember that night in particular. Like, I don't remember that happening, but I do remember like that was the same night where you had that crazy lady chasing you around. You know, you had success dating. You know, you had some success like making out with like a pretty good looking girl, and then you know you go for someone you really really find attractive, and unfortunately, you know, they may shoot you down, but at least you know you went for it. And
I just want to add something to that story. So that story like is to me a good example of where you stand in like the dating hierarchy,
like your dating league so much.
Yeah, like so the first person that was crazy and chased me down,
she was like a 4. Like a 3 or 4.
She was a 4. Yeah, I would say she was easily no higher than a 4, probably lower. The woman that I had success with that night, I would say she was a 6 to a 7, somewhere around there, which is I would say my league. You know, I can play there. I not always win, but I sometimes have success. And then when you go past your league and you get brutally rejected, that's society kind of telling you where you stand. So.
Yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from, man, especially like in a bar or nightclub scenario. You know, typically the women, when you approach them, typically the women that are receptive to your approach, like given they're single, they're not married or in a relationship, the ones that are receptive to you over a long, you know, a long sample size is typically what's going to be your league, so to say. But I think part of the reason you've been able to have a good amount of success when you were single is you've always kind of worked on yourself. You've done a lot of, you know, you've done some Looksmaxxing, and just out of curiosity, like what Looksmaxxing have you done, you know, when you were single, but also, you know, in a relationship to, you know, make you more like attractive man?
I guess you could say working out, but I actually don't work out for my looks. I do that for other health benefits, for physical and you know, mental benefits. I think working out, you should just do it, and you should do it 3 days a week, not for other people, but you should do it for yourself. But in the same way that you work out, you're going to be looking better as a result. So you should do it for yourself, but the nice plus side is people notice the results as well. And so I would say working out, if you want to call that Looksmaxxing, is something I've been doing since I was 14. Growing facial hair, huge.
Agreed.
I've always been able to grow a beard, but I never had like a full grown beard until I was in my late 20s. And when I made that change in my looks, I got huge results pretty quickly from the opposite sex. You know, they noticed it pretty quickly, and I got compliments pretty quickly when I started growing out full beard and everything.
Yeah, you definitely look like a different person. Because I remember meeting you in like later in college, and you were clean shaven. You weren't a bad looking guy back then, but like I noticed, like as you started to grow more facial hair, it kind of structured your jawline a little bit better. And then you trim it well too, so you kind of maintain it, and just it gives you more of, because you're like in shape, you know, you've built some muscle, have a good hairstyle, but the beard, it definitely helped your looks a lot specifically.
Yeah, I forget where I read this, but women are attracted to men more for our opposites than our similarities. So when you're a masculine man and you meet a feminine woman, she's going to notice your more masculine traits, which a beard, I don't know if you dated women with beards, but you probably haven't. So that's something the opposite sex notices very quickly. They're very attuned to it. I've noticed. So.
Yeah. I think in terms of facial hair, as long as you can grow, a decent amount of facial hair. It took me until I was probably about 24 for my facial hair to really come in. I think if you keep it at a low to medium to somewhere between medium and hot, like heavy stubble, that's kind of the range that I've seen women find the most attractive. And if you can grow a more of a fuller beard, that can obviously help out as well. But I think the thing is like maintaining it well, making sure you're maybe growing it out a little bit more around your chin and on the sideburns. Cut those a little bit shorter. But I've definitely seen a massive difference with you and how women have responded to you when you have facial hair. Outside of facial hair, working out, I noticed like your style has upgraded over the years, and I noticed like you're wearing a lot like clothes that fit you a lot more than you were like back in college or even the few years after college.
That's a good point. I would say it's a lot less of like the color shirt you wear, but more of the fit of that shirt on you. Like you can wear a white t-shirt that either looks good on you or you can wear a white t-shirt that looks bad on you. That to me is big, understanding like your kind of physique and like what kind of style looks good with that. And then when you want to get into like color and all that, I mean, like the style of shirt you wear can matter. But I think women are looking more at the fit of that clothing and less of like what's on the shirt. I mean, that can like spark a conversation if you both like, let's say a band, you're wearing a band t-shirt, you guys might like the same band. That could be an opening conversation, but they're not looking at that initially. They're looking at how that shirt fits you or whatever you're wearing fits you. I would say much more. So.
Yeah, 100%. I think the fit is absolutely crucial because you could be wearing like the most expensive suit in the world, or you could be wearing, like $500 like, hoodie or something like that. But if it doesn't fit you well, like it doesn't matter how expensive that clothing is, it's just not going to look good on you. I found that wearing, colors that kind of suit your skin tone as well, but just making sure that your shirt fits really well, your pants fit, you have a good pair of shoes. Fashion can definitely, it definitely can help, especially in like the corporate world, I think. But outside of Looksmaxxing, which you've done a lot of, like, what other advice would you give to shorter guys? Because as a taller guy, I could give advice, but I don't really know what it's like to be short. Early on in high school, like I wasn't as tall as I am now, and I did notice like the taller the more tall I got, dating definitely got a lot easier. But like, what other advice would you give to shorter men in the U.S. or outside the U.S. in order to like better attract women?
That's a good question, and I can't speak for every shorter man. Like I said, I'm 5'5". Some men are shorter than that, so I feel your pain, brother. Like I'm glad that I'm 5'5" and not shorter. But that being said, I mean, there's ways to still attract women. Like I said, I've dated women that were like 5'7", 5'8". It didn't stop them from being interested in me. So definitely, like, one of the currencies of dating is your confidence. And as a man, it's not so easy to just be confident. That comes with being good at something. So find your like niche area that you're good at. Like if you're an athlete, you could play a sport, or you could be in some competitive activity that gives you confidence knowing where you stack up against people. And if you're not an athlete, read a lot of books. Like that's going to help you feel more confident that way. But just find something that you feel is a value to society, and that will bring you confidence, I would say. So definitely find a way to become confident as a guy. That's huge. A sense of humor is another area where you can feel confident, but it translates with men and women. In the workplace, if you're funny, people want to work with you. In the dating scene, if you're funny, women want to hear your stories. So when women want to listen to you, that's a huge thing. If you're not irritating with the way you talk, kind of like your tone of voice is big, I would say. Some people have
100%.
Yeah, I feel like some people have like really monotone voices, or just kind of like screechy voices.
Squeaky.
Like any of those kinds of like unattractive
raspy voices.
Yeah, like raspy might help you, but the other kinds of tone of voices. People just don't want to hear you talk at that point.
100%. Yeah, I'll say like having a good voice is underrated because, you know, if obviously like looks are the first thing a woman sees, like she's looking at you, your looks, your genetics, but then after that, you know, the voice is the first thing that she hears. So if you do have like a monotone voice, or you have a, you know, like a higher pitch voice, maybe trying to work on that to make it, you know, that may take a lot of time, that may take a lot of effort and practice, but that might really help when you go to actually, you know, talk to women in real life.
Something about the voice. I think it's important because I've met people who what they're saying makes sense, but no one wants to pay attention to them just because of the way they say it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I think that translates in the dating world as well. So.
Yeah, 100%. I think especially in like the corporate world, like projecting your voice and like sounding like you know what you're talking about, like that can definitely go a long way. Whereas if someone isn't projecting their voice, or, you know, doesn't sound like they know what they're talking about, that's not going to translate well to the other person. But yeah, like you're a very like funny guy, and I think sense of humor has definitely been something that's like definitely really helped you kind of stand out from other people like in the dating scene. And in terms of like the women that you've dated as a shorter guy, do you find like more success in when you were single pursuing women that were shorter than you, or did you find that women that were around your same height or a little bit taller was a little more difficult? Like, what are your thoughts there?
I mean, I think general rule of thumb, you can say if the woman's shorter than you, she's possibly in your league. I mean, it gets into like your looks and all that. I don't imagine taller women are looking for shorter men in general, but there's I've personally met
some are open.
I've met some outliers.
Some are open.
Yeah, I've met women that were fine with me being shorter. They didn't care. Overall, I would say maybe just a little bit shorter than you is what you're looking for as a short guy, because you can only get so short. But then again, it's really not the defining thing all the time. So it just depends on what you bring to the table, honestly. So.
Yeah, 100%. I think overall, like the one thing I'll say is like, just, you know, being friends with you for a long time is like, even if you are a shorter man out there, like it's going to be much harder. Like it's going to be harder in the bar scene, in nightclubs for sure. It's going to be harder on dating apps. But like if you like, you know, work on, you know, building some muscle, maybe, you know, growing some facial hair if you're able to, working on your style, like working on other components, I think based on being friends with you, it's going to kind of help you close the gap a good bit. In terms of corporate America, you and I have both worked at, worked in corporate America for many years now.
We love working in corporate America.
Yeah, I love working in corporate America, especially it's a Sunday night and we're already getting Sunday scaries. But I guess in terms of like your professional life, like what's been your experience, being a shorter man in corporate America and kind of navigating that world?
Well, I will say, like in corporate America, your height matters way less, and your competency matters way more, because you're not being judged on how you look as much. It still definitely affects the way people interpret what you have to say, but at least in my opinion, as a guy, I'm not going to get the job if I don't come off competent and intelligent, if I'm working in a challenging environment. But then at the same time, like I feel like if I was taller, like starting out in my career, I might have gotten more respect off from the beginning instead of having to earn it slowly. But I definitely have some corporate cringe stories. So when I was like starting out in the industry that I'm in, I had a coworker that was probably like, I would imagine in her mid 60s. And for whatever reason, she just hated my guts. And it's really weird. I think it's cringy and weird when you're competing with someone twice your age.
Yeah, literally twice your age.
Yeah, in a corporate environment. I really never took her challenges that seriously, but she threatened to get me fired multiple times. She just hated my guts for whatever reason. That could have been avoided, I guess, if I was taller and she maybe just respected my height. She was probably like 5'8", 5'9", so I guess she thought she could intimidate me, but that's where confidence is so big, where you know what you bring to the table, and I just wouldn't let that define me at work. And I ended up like when she left, I got her position. So,
That's good karma.
Yeah, you can win these battles. Like, it's a good fight to get into, and just, hopefully you come out on top. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's you're always gonna have those like crazy coworkers, especially like, some people that are older in their career and they might be, 55 plus or like getting close to retirement, and they see someone that's like much younger and they wish that they were back in your shoes. They wish they could, go back to the beginning and like, possibly move up more in the company. But yeah, that's hilarious that you ended up with her job.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really go out thinking that way. I actually, initially that wasn't my mindset. But when you have someone day in, day out challenging your competency, sometimes challenging just if you're even aware of what's going on, it irritates you enough where you're like, dude, I'll take your job. Like, I don't care. Like that's how you want to be. If you want to compete with, I mean, I view you as, yeah, like I'm trying to view you as someone I can talk to as a normal person, but that's like out the window.
A coworker that you're in good standing with overall.
Yeah, I feel like going into the business world, you shouldn't think that way initially, but you'll become jaded. You'll get there. So don't worry.
No, you'll see it real quick in the corporate world. The first year sometimes can be good, but the longer you work in corporate America, the more bullshit you deal with.
Yeah, for sure.
Talk to me a little bit about your success in dating. You've been in a long-term relationship for many years.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
So I love my fiance. So just to give your audience some perspective, I'm almost in 3 years into a relationship now. We're engaged. I proposed to her over the summertime.
Nice.
So
happy for you.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's been such a turnaround from where, like I said, in high school I was to today. But you just got to really work on yourself to get there. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. Eventually, you got to start making like grown men decisions. And you got to ask yourself, like, do I see a long-term relationship with this person? Why am I dating this person? And when you start getting the answers you're looking for, when you start dating and finding new people in your life, it's really nice when you finally meet someone that you can just commit to. And that's where I'm at. I know everyone's got their own track. People are on different journeys. So sometimes marriage is never in the cards for whatever reason. But I would recommend, if you can finally, when it's all said and done and you can settle down with someone, that's where you want to be. Whether you get married or not, it's up to you. But you eventually you want to, I think, settle down. That's where I'm at.
And it's good that you've, where you started in high school, you weren't, like I said, you weren't getting a lot of women. In college, you started to see some success. You had some rejections. You had to work work harder, so to say.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of shorter men, even some that I know, struggle. I think we all struggle with rejection. It's kind of a brutal thing to deal with for everybody. But how have you kind of dealt with rejection? Like the times you've been rejected in a bar or club or an online dating, like how have you kind of faced rejection? And
initially it's terrifying to be rejected. I mean, you think it's the end of the world when you're like in high school, and then when you turn 21, you start going out to the bars. You think probably the scariest thing is being rejected. Maybe if you're out there doing that, but I think when you start becoming successful is when you start embracing rejection. When you say to yourself, well, this wasn't going to work out anyways, so it's better that I get an upfront no than waste a few months chasing the dragon, so to speak, and never catching it. I've been there too, where I've wasted months of time, and then when I started to get good at dating is when I started to really push for being rejected, hearing no, I'm not interested in you, because eventually people would say I am interested in you, and then the ball was in my court, and I could ask myself, well, what about me? Like, am I interested in this woman or not? It's kind of like a negotiation where you both have your interests and hopefully they line up. But if they don't line up, you don't have to make a deal. You don't have to necessarily like each other, and you can just move on. And that saves a lot more time if you can just embrace the rejection than kind of shy away from it. So
yeah, 100%. I think it's a lot of it's just putting yourself out there and showing the woman that you are attracted to them. And sometimes they don't always reciprocate that, and you just got to take it in stride and say, okay, well, at least I tried. and on to the next one. So I think you've done a good job about that, because I think a lot of guys in general in the US, but especially shorter guys, they may face, like, as a shorter guy, I think you're going to face more rejections than someone who's taller. I think you're in a good example of, you faced a good amount of rejection, but you kept pushing forward, like you kept at it, and then you were able to find someone that you really clicked with, and now you're engaged. So and happy for you.
Thank you. And other things to consider is, like, if you keep getting rejected all the time, you might have to change something about the way you're presenting yourself. Whatever's causing those rejections. Sometimes you have to listen to that and not just keep
feedback.
Yeah, sometimes you have to actually take that seriously. Not all the time. Most of the time it's BS. Usually it's just you're not compatible and there's nothing you can do about it. But sometimes you could have been compatible with someone and you're just not presenting yourself the right way. There was another point, but I lost my train.
I think that makes perfect sense. Like, you're not going to be compatible with everyone. Like, you could be the best looking person in the world, and they're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But that's good that you pushed through and you found someone. I think that's great at the end of the day.
Oh, I remember my last point. The other thing is, sometimes it's good not to be good at something initially. So take dating. It's sometimes good to struggle through that because it makes you a better person at the end. Like, it forces you to learn style and Looksmaxxing and working out. I mean, these are things you should just do, but because you're trying to be attracted to the opposite sex, it kind of forces you into that mindset. You should be there as it is, but if you're not, this forces you to think that way. So that's not a bad thing to get better at stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I said, I've gone through my own struggles as well, but I appreciate you coming on to the channel. Definitely appreciate your perspective. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Well, if you've enjoyed this interview, feel free to give it a like. Feel free to comment down below your experiences as a short man, and feel free to subscribe. Until next time, take care.